got quite a few still joining, okay? Okay, good evening and welcome to this PCS members meeting, Facebook Live event for the DSG group. I'm Fran Heathcote, I'm the president of PCS, and joining me tonight will be your group president, Chris Dando, and also our general secretary, Mark Sawatka. The way I intend to conduct the meeting is that in a minute, I'm going to hand over to Chris, and Chris is going to put things very much in a DSG context, and then I'll hand over to Mark for the big picture stuff. And we'll make sure we've got plenty of time for questions, comments, observations, anything else. The way to do that, if you have something you wish to say or raise, is to send that to the admin who will post in the chat which admin to send it to. Don't send it to me if you've got my contact details, because I won't receive it. The admin will make sure that those are all fed through to me, and we'll get through as many of those as we can. Obviously, don't want to keep you all evening. We try and get through this in about an hour. That's the plan. And it's very much a matter of going through what I think are pretty crucial issues right now in terms of the ballot that we're just about to undertake or have started. To put it into context, this is a significant dispute for PCS. We've had a lot of media coverage, a lot of attention, a lot of membership support in the areas where action has already been taken, whether that's targeted action, where we ask distinct groups of workers who can be strategically important to take action on behalf of everybody else, or whether that's all member action when everybody covered by the mandate takes action together. Clearly, we've had a mandate that ran from the 7th of November through to the 7th of May, a 6-month mandate. And for many of our members, the ballot that's now about just got started is the renewal of that mandate. But for DSG members, recognising that we didn't quite get there last time, this time is very much about talking to you, engaging with you, trying to make sure that we put everything in place to support you so that you too will be part of the action. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to your group president, Chris Dando, and Chris is going to talk about things very much from a DSG perspective. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Fran, and thanks for so many people being here tonight. I hope we'll be joined by a few more as we go along, because obviously a lot of you may well still be coming back from work or getting tea or looking after kids or putting young ones to bed. So hopefully we'll get some more people come along as we keep going. I'm Chris Dando, Group President, as Fran says, and I want to talk to you briefly about why this ballot is really, really important for us across the whole of the defence sector. We're balloting every defence workplace, every defence employer. We got close in some defence employers. We got to one vote within one defence employer. So it's really keen that we play our part this time, do the work to make sure that we, when the ballot result is announced, can stand alongside our colleagues in the rest of the union and take effective industrial action. Because many people, as I've been talking to branches and members, have said how sad they are that defence isn't part of this action, that they're itching to get on the picket lines for real, not just for support, and itching to be clear to demonstrate to our employers why it's important that they take our campaign seriously. Our campaign tonight, we'll talk about pay, but I'm sure Mark and Fran will talk about the other elements of the national campaign as well, which are equally important. But I just want to touch on pay. And most of you will have seen this week, Defence issued what they called clarification on how they were intending to treat the national living wage, the minimum wage, this year. In Defence, 20% of our staff will now, from the 1st of April, be paid at the minimum wage. In other government departments, that figure is even higher. It's 30% in quite a number of defence employers, but that's probably because of our grade mix. But that is a disgrace that a government employer can pay a fifth of its staff at the minimum wage is a disgrace. They very helpfully, just to make sure that if you weren't paying attention at the back, you could understand precisely what that meant, issued a brief this week to say that across the defence sector, MOD pay had increased by 12% since 2016. Just count that, that's almost 2% a year, hopefully, for some people. The minimum wage had increased by 46% over the same period. So if you were, quote, lucky enough to be paid at the minimum wage, you have had a reasonable pay increase over that 2016 to 2023 period. If you were not on the minimum wage, you have had pay restraint and pay cuts effectively, because if you add up what inflation has been over that period, it has been substantially more than 12%. And it doesn't matter what pay offer the department have made to us across that period, they have never attempted to approach the impact of inflation to keep pace with outside employers. They have always sought to hold pay down. The consequence of us failing to get through the mandate in the last ballot is that they now feel empowered to say, we now have a number of grades within the MOD who will be paid the same salary level. So some of you will be doing a more important job, a more responsible job, a job for which you require higher qualifications or training, but you are going to be paid from here on in the minimum wage. And when Justin and I and the other trade unions sat down with them last week to try and argue them away from that point, try to be clear with them the reaction that we'd already had from members about that proposal, the absolute anger that was coming from members who had served their time to get to a grade that was now going to be paid at the same level as another grade, a lower grade, people that they worked for, trained, supported, but also the minimum wage, the same salary or less than you could get stacking a shelf in a supermarket or cleaning up in a department store or any of the other things that genuinely employers felt they could pay the minimum wage for. A government department was saying to our members, their staff, we do not see a need to do anything to resolve their differentials, to do anything to acknowledge that these people should be paid the rate for the job. We think it's perfectly acceptable to pay them at the same level. And they gave us some nonsense about, oh, well, the Treasury won't give us money to resolve it. Oh, well, the Cabinet Office say tough, basically. But at the heart of it, it's because they knew that our group did not have the ability to do anything about it, because last time round we failed to get an industrial action mandate to allow us to take the same action that other groups have successfully taken and have applied pressure and leverage to their departments to make them think again. So it's vitally important that this time we get across that 50% threshold and that we get an overwhelming yes vote. It's vitally important that when we go back into pay negotiations with our departments and with our employers within defence, that we can go there armed with an overwhelming mandate that says clearly members have had enough. We're recruiting members hand over fist as a union, so people are joining us because they see the success that our union is having. They want to be part of that success, and we can go back to our employers and go, okay, you called our bluff, now we're going to call yours. We have an overwhelming mandate. We have identified areas that we will take out on targeted action, which will impact seriously on the business of the department. And we're going to use that mandate to force you to the negotiating table with a reasonable offer that enables our staff to keep their heads above water, because that's the reality. If you are at the moment at that level of pay, now the minimum wage, it's not a living wage, nowhere near the living wage, but if you think about how much money people are taking home and the sacrifices that they're having to make to do that, it's no longer the case that simply because you love doing the job simply because you believe that you're doing the right thing, looking after our service personnel, looking after communities, that you should expect to be paid poverty wages, and you should have those poverty wages topped up by having to go to food banks, having to claim universal credit. Mark, no doubt, will talk to you about the figures that the union got from our own surveys that demonstrated nearly a quarter of our members had to resort to food banks, had to resort to universal credit. In 2023, that is a disgrace. We have to say clearly on behalf of our members and on behalf of the whole union, enough is enough. We're now going to stand up for ourselves. We're going to take action. We can negotiate the best deal that we possibly can. We can go back into the employer and argue for they should treat you more fairly. They should give us an understanding, a better pay deal. But unless we've got the force to say to them, or else, we're not going to get anywhere. We've seen what other unions have been able to do, backed by industrial action mandates. Some of them didn't even have to take a single minute of strike action. The moment they and their members were clear that they were prepared to take action, management's caved. If we can get a mandate here, I firmly believe that we will have the same success. So please listen to Mark, listen to Fran, although Fran's got a cough, so she may not be able to do too much talking. Please go back and talk to your colleagues in the workplace, get them to join PCS if they aren't members, get them to get behind this campaign, start talking to people about how important it is to fill in your ballot papers and return them in the post, because as Fran will no doubt tell us, you ain't voted till you've posted. This is a postal ballot. We have to make sure that they're in the post, and hopefully there won't be the same postal strike issues that caused us problems with ballot returns last time and caused us to panic that we were not necessarily going to get over the line until the last day when the post arrived. So there's lots of time here. This is a 7-week ballot period. It's just started. I got my ballot paper this morning. It's going back in the post tonight. But please make sure that you do that. Please make sure that you support us to the best of your ability. Go out and talk to people. Together, we can win this. And I'll happily answer any questions at the end, Fran.
That's great. Thank you so much, Chris. And I think that's really put it into a bit of context, hasn't it? Before I bring Mark in, I'm just going to read out one comment because I think this really sums it all up. One of your members says, I'm now working a part-time job, 24 extra hours a week, as well as company's house full-time. I was approached by my line managers today and HR questioning my overall working hours with both jobs. I'm on my knees, but what do they expect? And I think in a couple of sentences, that sums up the impact of the cost of living crisis on a number of us, combined with the poverty pay that we're seeing. So something has to change. And hopefully this campaign is what will do that. So now I'm really pleased to introduce our General Secretary, Mark Swatka, who is going to give you the bigger picture stuff. So over to you, Mark. Can we unmute Mark, please? There you are.
Thanks very much, Fran, and good evening to everybody. And a big thank you to Chris there for that comprehensive lead off that's placed this in very much in the context of the DSG and what your management are saying and how critical it is that they must realize that they're going to have to deal with this, and that will only really be confirmed if we can get over the ballot threshold in DSG. So I want to thank Chris for what he said and thank everybody for giving up their time to join us tonight. What I wanted to do, Fran, because obviously I'm aware that many members on this call won't have had as many meetings as perhaps we've had elsewhere where strikes are taking place and where there's targeted action. So I do think it is important, as this is a group that didn't get over the threshold, that we bring people up to speed about exactly what's happened up to now, where we are in terms of our campaign, why the reballot is probably now the single most important thing we're asking you to do. And to really put it in a context of why we are confident that if we win this reballot, that we are going to make major gains. But if we don't get over the threshold with the reballot, then clearly the pressure's off the government. So I've got a few things to cover, but like Chris, I'd be more than happy to take any questions. I think the first thing to say is Chris very nicely, I think, has put our case in the DSG. We think that people are working hard. We don't have enough resources. We certainly are not paid enough. Our management constantly ask us to go over and above what is probably reasonable. And yet, in terms of what people are paid, the history of the civil service over the last 10 to 15 years has now meant that the value of every member's pay in DSG has fallen like a stone, meaning that not only are 20% of DSG workers now on the national minimum wage, as Chris himself has said, that story is replicated in other departments. We had no national minimum wage jobs essentially a decade or so ago. The reality is what's happened is people whose pay was never great, but was at a certain level, has lost its value massively because we've had 10 years of real terms pay cuts. As Chris has said, that isn't just unacceptable, that people who are supporting defence or making decisions on asylum claims or paying universal credit or chasing down tax dodgers are paid the national minimum wage. By the way, a wage that is now comfortably surpassed by McDonald's and by places like Costa's. Now, I say good luck to anyone working for McDonald's and Costa's. They deserve to get paid a decent wage. But frankly, if in the defence industry or defence sector or in a home office or DWP or an HMRC, our pay is now lower than that, it is an utter disgrace, and it shows what the government has managed to get away with over the last 10 years. So I wanted to really be clear that what we're asking for, first of all, is important to get across. We've got 4 demands on the government. One is that money is made available now for 2022. That is an absolute prerequisite. Last year, our members got a pay rise that was 2 to 3%, depending where people worked. That is completely unacceptable. It is the lowest anywhere across the public sector and is one of, if not the lowest in the economy generally. So our first demand is not about 2023's pay. I'll come to that in a second. It is that we need money now for what we lost last year. Just to give people a context of what that means, is we've lost 20% of pay in real terms over the last 10 years, but I've got the inflation figures in front of me for every month since April last year. And I'll just run through what they are. Starting in April last year, CPI inflation, 9%, 9.1%, 9.4%, 10.1, 9.9, 10.1, 11.1, 10.7, 10.5, and 10.1. And yesterday, when inflation was forecast to fall, inflation has risen to 10.4% on the government index. So even if you've only just started work and you haven't been blighted by being here for 10 years or more, if inflation is averaging over that period of over 10% and you've ended up with 2 or 3, there is an immediate and dramatic cost of living reduction. That means you are poorer at the end of the year than you were at the start. That in itself is completely unacceptable. But yesterday's inflation figures also something else was revealed. Food inflation, that is taking account of inflation for food, for staple food, which hits the lowest paid people the hardest, was at 18%. Now let's just digest that figure for a minute. 18% is what food is rising in the shops, the things that you and your family will rely on, and yet your pay increases, or the average across PCS, is 2.3%. So we're asking for an immediate payment to take account of the fact that we didn't get enough payment last year. Again, to give you a context, it's what every other union is also asking. And those unions, alongside us who've been taking strike action, have started to see some success. So just to give you some comparative figures, in the fire service, they have now accepted a pay offer that effectively was for 7% in 2023, 5%, sorry, in 2022, 5% for 2023. The health service are now balloting on a deal that has delivered 6% for last year, 5% for this year. The RMT on Network Rail have just accepted a deal that was 5% for last year, 4% for next. So you're beginning to get the picture that everyone has done better last year than we have done, and therefore we must have money on the table now. But we are also seeking a 2023 pay rise that again is not below the rate of inflation and means that we make up for some of what we have lost. In addition to that on pay, we're asking for the pensions contributions that you're all overpaying at 2% a month to be refunded. That on average is £500 a year. It's more if you paid more. And that now on the 1st of April will mean everyone on this call who's in the civil service pension scheme who's on average pay is owed £2,000. The government know you're paying too much. Their independent valuation has told them you're paying too much. Not a single penny of what you're overpaying will benefit your pension. It is essentially a tax on civil servants. And whilst people will have seen that we did not win the legal case that we took with 5 other unions, where it was found that the government has acted lawfully because they prayed in aid an overarching economic national interest argument, we still believe that the government knows you're being paid too much, and therefore it remains a fundamental aim to get you your money back and to immediately get your pension contributions dropped by 2%. That in itself, even if it only happened from now, would have the effect of essentially 2% more income. Additionally, we are seeking reassurances of job security, because although the government has got rid of its 90,000 job cuts target, the budget it's set means that there are going to be swathes of job losses across the civil service. And finally, Fran, we are seeking a guarantee that they will not cut people's redundancy terms by the 33% they are still seeking to cut them by. Now, all of those issues are in front of the government. And I can tell you that because the government has treated us so badly, we've had historic industrial action ballot results. So 125 departments smashed the threshold last autumn. Unfortunately, this was not one that managed to do it. I think across the group, it was a 40.1% turnout, which means we were about 500 votes short. But because your colleagues in 124 areas did beat the threshold, who've now, by the way, been joined by a further 10 who have now beat the threshold in a reballot, we've been able to conduct a very effective campaign of industrial action. What that has looked like is we've had 2 national days of strike action on February the 1st and March the 15th. Everyone is paying a levy to also mean that we can support colleagues coming out for sustained targeted action. And I just want to say tonight that that targeted action is building massive pressure on the government. You've had colleagues in too many departments to mention here, but some of them have taken action for weeks. That has meant massive backlogs in driving tests, delays in driving licenses, the closure of museums and galleries, the closures of job centres. We have seen delays across not just our transport network, but across EFRA, the Rural Payments Agency, the list goes on. This week, on your behalf, as well as their own behalf, we have members on strike in Ofsted, that is affecting school inspections, members on strike in the Coast Guards Agency, and members on strike in the driving examiners. In the next 2 weeks, your colleagues will come out on strike in the British Museum and the British Library, as well as in the passport offices, where we've announced a 5-week strike in every passport office in Britain. And for those who say the union never gets any media coverage, just check out the media coverage we've had over the last few days, front page headlines, major news coverage. That's all adding to the fact we've had more media coverage as a union than we've ever had before. That is building enormous pressure on the government. So much so that I can tell you tonight that we've been in further discussions with the Cabinet Office. And whilst we have yet to pin down the detail, it looks like we will become the latest sector to join those like health and teaching to get into meaningful negotiations around our demands. Now, I want to stress, the date for that has not been confirmed. The issues on the table have yet to be confirmed, but the very fact that they're even reaching out to try to put in place meaningful negotiations would never have happened had it not been for the pressure that they are under. And we know that that's happened elsewhere because other sectors have had improved offers. We know the teachers have been in the department today discussing teachers' pay. That's never happened before for us. In the past, they issue the pay remit and then refuse to discuss anything nationally and say it's down to every individual department. The point, however, is that the pressure that's forcing them to now accept they have to get into talks needs to be sustained so that we get not just a date for those talks, but the agenda covers last year's pay as well as this, and it forces the government to put money on the table. I am confident that the pressure we're building is going to lead to all of that. But the thing that I really wanted to end on, Fran, is to say that we know this government is prepared to do anything it can to evade its responsibilities. They know our legal mandate ends on the 7th of May. They know that by dragging their feet, it is entirely possible that we will be starting negotiations, and those negotiations will be in full swing just as our mandate is about to end. Were that to happen, we would have no leverage on them at all to ensure those talks received an acceptable outcome that we could ballot all members on. And this is the key point about the reballot. What everyone's being asked to do now is to vote yes, and send your ballot paper back. Even if you're going to vote no, we still want you to vote and send a ballot paper back, because it's the turnout that is the key. And what we've got to keep in our mind is if that ballot delivers another threshold busting vote, and if DSG is one of those departments that this time gets over the line, when the talks start, they know they cannot filibuster because our action will be able to go on for the rest of the year. And they will also know that whatever they're going to offer us nationally, DSG cannot try to wriggle out of, because your mandate will put you in the driving seat alongside every other one of the 130 odd departments that have already got over the line. So it's in your interest to give your negotiators the strongest hand to ensure we get everything we can out of DSG, but you give your national negotiators the strongest hand to ensure that the government puts money on the table now, delivered centrally to everyone, and also gives us the assurances that DSG management can't give us around your pensions and around your compensation scheme, which they are not able to do because only the Cabinet Office and Treasury can give those assurances nationally. So I'd put it this way, Fran, why wouldn't people do it? Because not returning a ballot paper gives the advantage to the other side. Voting yes means the pressure we've already built that's put us in the strongest position the union has ever been in will be in place for long enough to squeeze every last penny out of them. That is why we're urging everybody to vote and to send the ballot paper back. Urge your colleagues to do so. Urge people to still join the union, because people can join the union and vote. And the larger the vote, the more pressure we put on them. And here's the final thought. We've talked a lot about health workers have had a better deal, firefighters have had a better deal. We'll wait to see what comes out of the teachers. But I want to finish on an upbeat note about where we've got a better deal. Because when we started this ballot, we covered over 200 employers, 124 got over the line straight away, another 9 or 10 have joined us, and there are more voting as we speak. One of those areas in Scotland, who is in the national dispute, as a result of taking action, has just received a pay offer on behalf of PCS members that delivers a £15 an hour minimum wage. That has been reported in the press this week, that our members working, for example, as tour guides and security guards will get a £6,000 pay uplift immediately. They will be on a national minimum wage that is 50% higher than the one that exists in DSG, DWP and HMRC. The pay rise we've secured is between 10 and 29% over a 2-year period, plus talks on reducing the working week and potentially introducing a 4-day week. And I'm making that point because we haven't just got that with the potential to improve terms and conditions. We did not give up a single existing term and condition in order to get that offer. And I'm finishing on that note because I know the controversy in DSG we've had in recent years where members were concerned that we didn't ballot on a deal that delivered more money but required us to give up certain terms and conditions. We've been clear what we're asking for is what we deserve without giving anything up. We just showed for one group of members in Scotland that we have far exceeded any other pay offer that currently exists in the public sector. Not only did we not give anything up for it, we are going to improve our terms and conditions. Now, that's a small employer. The trick is to get that for everybody in the Scottish sector and then use it to get the government in Westminster to say if £15 an hour is good enough in parts of Scotland, it's good enough in the DSG, DWP and for everyone else. It shows what's achievable, Fran. When we stick together, we pay the levy, we support those who are striking for weeks on end on behalf of us all, and when we can take national action. And we can do that in DSG. By simply returning your ballot paper and getting over the threshold means that you and I, Fran, can go to the Treasury demanding money and demanding it now. And that means Chris and Justin and the DSG negotiators can lock horns with DSG management at the appropriate time, squeezing every last thing out of them that is DSG specific. I hope that what people have got from what Chris has said and what I have said is that this isn't a campaign where we're saying vote yes and maybe something might happen in the distant future. It's a campaign that we've already built more pressure than we've ever managed before. It's almost certainly going to get us to meaningful negotiations pretty quickly, and has already delivered huge increases for some small groups of members in this union. Think what we can achieve if you do that, and think how much stronger you'll be in DSG if, just like your colleagues in HMRC, we were gutted in November when we didn't get over the threshold and the management had their tails up. Here we are 3 months on, and HMRC have gone from a 47% turnout to a 57% turnout and an 85% vote for a strike. That doesn't just support the national campaign. It means the union in HMRC is stronger now than it's ever been. Wouldn't it be great if we can do exactly that in DSG? Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark, and hopefully people have found that useful. Okay, I'm going to start with a few solidarity messages from Merseyside, Darren Paul, from Stockport, Tony Barsley, and solidarity from the DSG Northwest branch to all members and activists fighting to smash the ballot threshold, and that's from Rob Bowers. So thanks so much, everybody, for those messages. Okay, there are a couple of, I can lump some of these questions together, but I'm going to start with one for you, Chris, which I think hopefully is fairly easy to address. So one of our members says, looking at the terrible pay imposition over recent years in the MOD, what impact will the national living wage have on the pay pot in MOD, as the national living wage is brought in from April when there is no new money? So in other words, we know, don't we, that in a number of government departments, because pay has fallen so low, that from next month, the national living wage will increase and those members will fall below the national living wage. So therefore, the government will be forced to give them a pay increase. Does that impact on the DSG pay pot, Chris, or the MOD pay pot?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Fran, because the actual increase to the national living wage, we've been told, is outside of the pay pot. However, the fact that they are increasing the national living wage for a small group of members, or quite a large group of members actually, but that takes them to the differential of an even bigger group of members. It's the issue that the Treasury and the Cabinet Office say there is no new money to deal with that differential issue. So the grades have shrunk as a consequence of pay going up through the national minimum wage, but not going up through pay increases. And to bring, there's about 9,000 staff affected in that area, to bring those people back to where they were, where there was a clear differential between the AA grade at the bottom and the AO grade, the one grade up, and there's also the same issue with industrials, that would have to come out of the pay pot, and that would pretty much wipe out the 1% that we were told yesterday the department has in its budget calculations for pay going forward for the next 5 years. Because although the Chancellor of the Exchequer announced huge amounts of money for defence, 11 billion here and 5 billion there and something else, all of that money is actually already committed. They just keep re-announcing it. It's pitiful, really. There's only 100 million, which is a lot if you gave it to me, but it's not a lot if you spend it on defence. There's only 100 million that is uncommitted of that amount of money, and their budget is set at a 1% increase for pay over the next 4 years. So that's where we have the problem. Whatever pay offer they come up with, they don't have the money to fund it. But if they tried to deal with the differential issue, then that would soak up the entirety of the pay budget and more, because that's how bad they've left the problem. We have been telling them, I've been telling them for the last 4 years that this is going to be a problem and they need to deal with it. And they've gone, yeah, but we can't. So here we are. Now here we are, and they're hoping that we just shut up and go away.
Yeah, Chris, I think you've explained that really well, but it's a massive problem, isn't it? This whole, because of what's happened with the national living wage, it's basically decimated the grading structure. So if anybody needed a reason to vote in the national campaign, this is it. Because failing to do that and failing to become part of this campaign is just going to, leave your members to a future of a system that people cannot make gains from. So I think that's really well explained, Chris. So thank you for that. There's a message here, which is, I'm not asking for comment on it, but it's from Kevin Ovington, who says, I'm not a member of your union, but I am a trade unionist. And I think you are absolutely right to raise the question of reballoting. I really hope you win. And it is clear that as this goes on, your union is becoming stronger. Good luck to all of you. So thank you very much for that, Kevin. Thanks for taking the time to post that. Okay, the next batch of questions, Mark, I'm going to direct to you. And I'm going to read 2 or 3 together because they're all along similar lines. Rob Bowers said, how can we best divide up our members to our membership list to talk to all of our members? Somebody else asks, who from the GEC can members and branches contact for advice, support and pastoral care as we work to smash the ballot? And somebody else asked, what resources are available to reps and branches to support them in organising within the ballot period from PCS centrally and from regional offices? So the gist of all of that is, how can we work together? What support is available? And what should branches do to make sure we have the best chance of smashing that threshold? So over to you, Mark.
Okay, so I'll make a few general points, and it might be helpful if colleagues can put some stuff in the chat, because obviously we've been through this before, both in terms of running a national ballot where we did 234 employers at the same time, and we've now had the luxury of the follow-up, if you like, by balloting 10 at the same time. So we've learned a lot of lessons as we go. I think the first thing to say is nobody should feel they're on their own. It's really important that anyone who wants to access support sends us in their details. Support is available both from within your group and from people in the leadership of the group, plus PCS nationally. We will, during the course of the ballot, be doing things such as call hub. We'll be texting people. We'll be sending lots of communications out. And one of the things that we're urging people to do who haven't been on it is to attend some of the strike schools that we've got, which deal with how we can win the ballot and make preparations. So there's always somebody there who can help. The key lessons that we learned from the ballot first time round is that where we were most successful, and I think this is borne out in your own group, I've looked at the returns in the branches within the group, and obviously none of the branches were successful in getting over the 50%. But the one that got closest at 49% was the branch that showed it did most to speak and contact its own members, and to then use our digital tools to sign off who had told us they voted. And one of the things that we've done a lot of work on, Fran, is where people contacted and spoke to members, the turnout was always higher. Where people use PCS digital in order to record the fact that that had happened, it means that the resources we put into chasing people up to vote weren't wasted. We didn't get members complaining that they'd been contacted 2 or 3 times because we had accurate, up-to-date information on who told us they voted and who hadn't. The other key thing that we learned first time round is that those branches and reps who were quickest out of the block and got stuck in at the earliest time did best. The proof of this pudding is in the HMRC reballot. I mentioned last time that they got 47% in the original ballot. Now they've got that up to 57%. And the difference is that in the reballot, everybody came out of the blocks, flying out of the blocks, was contacting members, arranging meetings, virtual, online, talking to members, using our tools to say who'd been spoken to and who hadn't. In the first ballot, too much of that work was done at the back end of the ballot period itself. And I think if we look at your own group, it's a similar story, that last time we came out of the blocks generally too slow, and then people worked really incredibly hard towards the end, and we found a lot of votes were coming in at the back end, but unfortunately not quite quick enough. I think you needed 500 more votes. If we'd kept the ballot going another week, you'd have got probably very, very close. So the key here is out of the blocks quickly, and we're urging people, Fran, to arrange meetings, virtual or physical. We're urging people to ensure that they get a cascade system in place where we get people talking to members, encouraging them to vote. We ensure that where we can, we're recording that on our own data, that if people need help, they come and ask for help. And I can tell you that one of the things we're hoping to do in this ballot, for example, given the amount of people that we've got on strike, will be that we're trying to ensure we've got more and more people doing the phone banking and the peer-to-peer texting to ensure that we can contact people as we go. So there's some pointers, but obviously within the group itself, I'm sure Chris might confirm that, you know, we want a group plan in place, and we want to ensure that all of our branches have got branch plans in place now to try to contact everybody on every site. But we know the specific problems in the DSG group, and if the National Union can help in any way, that we will. But, you know, if I was going to sum all that up, it is no conversation is wasted. The earlier those conversations start, the better. And the quicker we can identify who is telling us they have not voted, the more we can then focus our resources in the second half of the ballot period on chasing up those who have not told us that they voted. So there's some pointers.
Okay. Thanks so much, Mark. Okay, for anybody who wants them, there are some links and some email addresses being placed in the chat by the admins about who to contact if you want support, whether that's in your group, in your branch, you know, in your site. And Chris, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that. Basically, the overriding message is that nobody should feel on their own with this. We're all working together to make sure that we smash that threshold. And to do that, that requires as much support, as much help as we can muster. So anything to add, Chris?
Yeah, just very briefly, Fran, because I think that's a very important point. We are working with organising. We've got dedicated resources in each branch now who are supporting that activity. If anyone on this call wants to get involved, please email that dsg@pcs.org.uk website email address, and we can get back to you immediately with what you can do, how you can help, the sort of resources that are available. We're running strike schools endlessly to talk through people, how to do the ballot, how to support people who are taking action. So there's oodles of support, oodles of work going in that can help people. Don't think you're on your own, just reach out and ask and we can support you. And if you want Justin or I to be speakers at your branch meetings or site meetings, just let us know. We can fill people in quite quickly and just spend the next 7 weeks working to win this ballot.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Okay, there's a couple that I'll just cover off. So you've been running strike schools. Really sorry, but we missed them. Can you run strike schools in our branch for our reps and advocates? And how do we set one up? That's from Ian, and the answer is yes, definitely. If you just get in touch with us, Ian, either get in touch with the group or get in touch with the organising department via one of the email addresses in the chat, we can set up bespoke strike schools for anybody who wants them. The whole idea is to make them as widely available as possible. There's a message here, which is an example of good organising. Top tip: DSG Northwest held a members meeting today on the WPP and the compensation scheme. Attendance was 108 members, and we also talked about the ballot on the basis of exercising your democratic voice in our democratic union through our democratic processes. And then just below that, there's another message saying, thank you for your efforts, Jasmine. So I don't know whether that's Jasmine thanking everybody else for their efforts, or whether that message is related to Jasmine. If it is Jasmine, well done. And if it's just Jasmine saying well done and thank you, then thanks for that, Jasmine. So hope I haven't confused things too much. Okay, what is the action or possibility about strike pay in the DSG? In other words, might we be called to take targeted action? Mark, do you want to cover off that point about targeted action?
Yes, I will. And thanks very much for the question. And can I say a big thank you to everyone on this call who's paying the levy, because it's really important to always stress, when you pay the levy, every penny pays the strike pay of a colleague of yours. And sometimes people think, well, are their strikes only going to benefit themselves? And the point is that everyone who's on targeted action, wherever they work, is to get the government around the negotiating table for money for us all. Those targeted actions have been very successful, but obviously you can only call it where you've beaten the ballot threshold. So if the DSG group now returns over a 50% vote, I can tell you that we will almost the next day be sending a note to Justin and to Chris asking them whether or not there are any areas in the DSG group that look good targets for us to call targeted action. The criteria generally is that members would support it, there's good level of union membership, and it will have a real impact on the employer. I mean, Chris may want to answer. I bet there are areas in the DSG group that would tick all of those boxes. And so you determine that. The beauty of our strategy is it isn't me and you, Fran, sitting in Clapham thinking we know how everything works. The beauty of this strategy is it relies on people working in the areas to tell us this works, and your reps telling us, can you go for it here? If there's an area that looks like it fits the criteria, all members who come out on strike for whatever long period we agree will then receive a full reimbursement from the union paid for by the levy. And so there's the answer to the question. If the DSG group get over the threshold and you're part of all out action that we saw on the 1st of February and the 15th of March, no strike pay is paid, because obviously no union can pay strike pay when there's 100,000 plus on strike, but the targeted action is paid. And people will know, and I'll just make this point, I think our strategy has proved to be one of the most popular industrial action strategies in the union's history. I mean, we are constantly told by members and reps that why they like this strategy is it's dealt with that age-old problem we had. People wanted to go on strike, but their pay is so low, they genuinely didn't feel that they could do what, say, the RMT and the Postal Workers Union have done, which is have 20 odd days of strike action. The beauty of what we're doing is we do have unpaid action sporadically when it maximizes its effect and builds national pressure. But in between now, we're having longer term action that really hits the employers, and we know the employers are feeding into the Cabinet Office. It's causing them problems. Members don't lose money. And it's solidarity at its best. We all chip in £3 or £5 a month to support those colleagues who can take hard-hitting action on everyone's behalf. So I hope that is an explanation of the strategy, Fran. And I can confirm that if you get over the ballot, we will come to ask your leaders in the group about any areas, and any member on this call who's got a really good idea, do not be shy about telling Chris or telling Justin, because if we've got those ready up our sleeve, that's great. But to do all of this, you have to get 50% plus one in the turnout, and therefore every vote is crucial.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Okay, I'm going to read out a few comments. Most of them aren't from DSG members. So there's lots of other people who've joined this call who are supporting you and sending solidarity. So Rachel from Tamworth Job Centre says, I'm voting yes. I'm fortunate enough to be involved in PCS and becoming a rep and awaiting my training. I'll be supporting all others in Tamworth Job Centre to vote yes. So thank you, Rachel. Paul says, I'm voting yes. Solidarity from the Sudan Revolution, power to the unions, power to the workers, and that's from Khalid. So thank you for that, Khalid. And I'm voting yes. Solidarity from DWP Future Pensions, and that's from Di. So those are some messages of support. As I say, not all within your group, but clearly you're getting lots of support. Okay, so there's a comment here, probably for you, Mark, but I'll read it out, and then if either of you want to comment, carry on. The overarching national campaign is great, and pay is the priority in the cost of living crisis. Can we also ask for a central update on the attacks and the current position on the compensation scheme, as some areas in DSG were looking for hooks to get members to vote, are facing redundancy later this year, and the continuing attacks on the compensation scheme is very high in their minds right now. So Mark, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, certainly. And obviously, Chris, feel free if there's anything you want to add. It's a great question. And we know that for members, particularly members with long service, this is a real worry. And we know the government plans to cut the compensation scheme by a third. We know this because they tried to do it in 2016 and they went ahead with doing it until we stopped them in the courts. And we know what a victory that was, because the government's own evidence to the court confirmed that it's already cost them hundreds of millions of pounds. And what that means is money they'd have pocketed has gone to PCS members who had to take redundancy, some of whom wrote to us to tell us it meant the difference to them in some cases of £50,000 or £60,000 when they'd had decades of service. The government made a manifesto commitment in the last election to cut the civil service compensation scheme. So no one should think this threat's gone away. And indeed had written to us 3 times in the last year saying they intended to start talks to reduce the compensation scheme to bring it more in line with what they wanted in 2016. So this is a threat that constantly hangs over us. I want to reassure members that if they try to proceed, we will of course seek to take legal action again. The thing is that we won the legal action last time because they failed to consult properly and they didn't do it properly. You have to assume that they will try and do this properly by the book. So we can't put all our eggs in the legal basket, but I can assure you we will take legal action. So it is central to our campaign. So any member who thinks, well, I am bothered about pay, but I want to leave, is redundancy a key thing? It is an absolute key thing to sort this dispute. And I can tell you that if the government was to say to us, we will give you extra money, but we're cutting your redundancy scheme, we would not recommend settling on that basis, because that would leave some members appallingly exposed to a huge cut in what we think is their rights. So yes, it's a threat. Yes, it's part of our dispute. And I want to be clear, Fran, is that personally, I believe that if we regain our mandate, this is something that we can win on. I actually do believe that if the government see us carrying on with strikes, this is something that will be conceded. But it won't be conceded unless they feel they have to. So I hope that answers the question for anyone. And likewise on pensions, we're not giving up on believing you're being paying too much contributions. And we want a job security agreement. And I just want to say on that, while some members sometimes want to take redundancy, our view is that in the modern age, nobody should be forced to lose their job who wants to carry on working, particularly now, given the ability to work differently and remotely. Even if bases or offices are closing, nobody should lose their job. So we want guarantees on job security, no cuts to redundancy terms, your pension money back, and we want money and we want it now. And all of those are important. And we know some are more important to others, which is why I'm stressing tonight, the government know there are 4 issues that they need to make progress on for us to resolve this dispute.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, you've got your hand up. Do you want to come in? If we can unmute Chris, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's important, as you rightly say, there are some areas that are already going through the redundancy process, but we know that the result of the integrated review that was announced last week, but the detail is missing, is going to be announced in a Defence Command paper in June. That will make new commitments for defence, but what isn't there is the money to fund it. And they are already saying that they need to increase service personnel numbers, which is right. But with no money to do that, their only real option is to get rid of civilians. So we're quite worried that there will be, as a consequence of that Defence Command paper, suggestions of further base closures, further rationalisations, further changes to people's working locations, which, as Mark says, could be dealt with by increasing hybrid working. But the likelihood is, at the end of it, they will go, don't need civilians, do need military personnel, so we'll get rid of the civilians. And it's iniquitous and disgraceful if they do that and say at the same time, and we'll pay you a third less, because people have paid into this their entire working lives. They're owed this money, and for the government to go, going to get rid of you and going to get rid of you on the cheap is disgraceful. So if for no other reason, that's another reason why you should vote yes in the ballot, and make sure that your colleagues also send their ballot papers back in. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, I'm not really asking for a comment on this. It's more of a comment, I think, in itself. But actually, it shows the importance of having lots of activity on the ground and making sure that reps are speaking to their members, because it says, I work at the APC in Glasgow. We had our AGM very recently and had almost double the number of participants that are on this call. How are you going to reach 50% threshold if very few people are listening? I wouldn't be deceived into thinking that the number of participants on the call or the total number of participants. This is live on Facebook. And what we find, if you go back and have a look at the figures on Facebook in 24 hours time, it'll be in the thousands. So, but I mean, it's a good point, isn't it? That we need activity to happen on the ground. It can't just come from a meeting like this or from central sort of direction. It has to come from reps engaging with members and from members being confident and clear about what the issues are. So that's when those conversations come in. I think it was Mark that said at the beginning that actually the branches that did best were the branches where there were those discussions and people understood the issues. Okay, I think you've probably covered this, Mark, but will the union be challenging the court decision regarding the pensions robbery?
Yeah, so as people know, we've been to the High Court to seek judicial review of what the government's done on pensions. alongside 4 other unions. We weren't successful, and we are now considering with our lawyers the prospects of an appeal. And I think it is important for people to know that not being successful doesn't mean that what the government's done is okay. It just means that they were able to invoke a very broad brush economic national interest argument to give them the enough for judges to believe that that was within their powers. What is not disputed is they know that people are paying too much. So we're going to look to see whether we can appeal, but it is very much central to our campaign to get this money back and to get the pensions contributions to be dropped, and that's ongoing and is part of this campaign, Fran. Fran, I think you might have frozen.
Yeah, it looks like Fran has definitely frozen.
Right, okay. I mean, just while we're trying to get Fran back, Chris, is there anything from your point of view? Because I think we were aiming to finish at 7. Is there anything from a DSG point of view that you think is worth summing up towards the end?
No, I think we've had some good questions, Mark. I think we've had some good responses, and I would just encourage people who want to get involved in this campaign to come to the group office, and we can provide you with all the resources that you want. We can support you in whatever way you want. We can hold meetings, we can come and speak, we can speak online. There's lots of resources produced, which if you go on to PCS Digital, there's a whole panoply of things that you can use to support the ballot. And it's just putting the work in now. It's talking to members, be clear what we're trying to achieve, be clear that we believe we can win this and we will win this, and just putting the hours in.
Thanks very much, Chris. And just from my point of view, if I could just say a couple of things just in drawing to a close. First of all, we are incredibly grateful for everyone who's given up their own time, particularly DSG members who joined us on Zoom, but also for anyone else watching on Facebook. The things that we really just want everybody to go away and think about is that we know how disappointing it was when in DSG we failed to get over the threshold last time. And obviously, as we said earlier on, for the union, we had a massive achievement. We got 124 areas over first time of action, asking everybody else that we have reballoted since we have won. But the beauty of our strategy is that the more people get over the line, it doesn't just strengthen the national dispute. Critical element is it shows the individual employers and their management that the union is also strong in their area. And what we're trying to achieve is to get DSG members part of the national campaign, because given some of the questions we've had tonight, DSG need funding for a decent pay rise. That's going to be secured through the national dispute, but there's bound to be an element that will require DSG talks to resolve ongoing issues. And by having a ballot group by group, it means you don't only strengthen the national campaign, but your management will realize if we go from the 40.1% last time to over 50%, that the union is stronger than it was, more people have got involved, and we now are a force to be reckoned with. And I think that's the key thing that I'd want to sort of stress at the end. Yes, we want more pay and job security and pensions justice and no cuts to redundancy scheme, but there will be dozens of other issues in DSG that we know are bones of contention about, whether that's grading, whether it's health and safety issues, lack of resources. And winning this ballot in a very public way will strengthen the hand of your negotiators in each branch and each workplace on other issues as well as the national dispute. And I think that's the beauty of what we're doing. And for anyone who sometimes thinks, particularly people who've been around a long time, well, we've been here before, do we ever win anything? I'll leave you with this thought. The union has grown at a faster rate in the last 6 months than it has in years. We have more members now than at any time since Francis Maud stopped us taking union dues from people's pay packet. The strikes we've had have attracted more new and younger people than we have ever seen before. More reps coming forward, more people getting involved. Last week in London, in Glasgow, in Edinburgh, in Cardiff, and numerous other places, we were visible. Thousands of PCS members in red hats with flags, rallying outside Downing Street, and then joining tens of thousands of junior doctors and teachers and train drivers and tube workers, and we were noticed. What we want now is not just to be noticed as PCS nationally, but we want to be noticed in the DSG group. So every single vote matters. Every conversation matters. Every new joiner matters. It makes you stronger in your group. It makes us stronger nationally. And if we can get £15 an hour in an employer in Scotland, we can get more money for members in DSG and across the civil service. So I can see Fran's back now, so I'll stop waffling on. So I just really wanted to say a big thanks for everyone who joined us. I really believe, I am more confident than I have been before, that we are going to win something as a result of this dispute. What we can't have is the government clinging on, hoping to get to the 7th of May and us not having a mandate. So by voting and sending it back could make the difference between getting more money, job security, and your pensions back. Let's do it, and let's do it together. Good luck.
Okay, many thanks, Mark. Unfortunately, my PC went on strike, so I left you momentarily. I don't know what I missed. Chris, have you got anything you want to say in summing up?
No, I think let's let people go back to their daily lives, Fran. We filled in admirably for you, but that's it's not something we'll do every time. Just
by way of closing remarks then, there are a few final solidarity shout outs that I'd like to read. Pretty Poppy says, my son will be voting yes. Solidarity from DEFRA Group, that's from Patrick Brophy. Solidarity from DWP Cornwall branch, that vote yes, that's from Catherine. And then very finally, Carl says, as soon as this Facebook Live has finished, I'm taking a walk to the nearest post box. And I think that's an excellent note to finish on. So we know what the task in front of us is. We understand that the stakes are high, but we understand why it's so important for our members, don't we? So we know what we're going to do. We've got 6 weeks left to do it in. Let's go out and smash this ballot. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for listening. Please keep in touch with us. There's lots and lots of ways we can support you if anybody needs that. But if not, talk to your colleagues, talk to the people that weren't here tonight, get them to put a cross in the box, take the ballot paper to the letterbox and post it. That's the single most important thing we can do in the period ahead. Thank you so much. Take care. Good night.
Thanks all.
Good night. Cheers all.